The next statistic that we're going to be learning to calculate is the inpatient bed occupancy rate. This is covered in your textbook on pages 550 to 552. The inpatient bed occupancy rate is sometimes also referred to as the percentage of occupancy, and like some of the other statistics that we've looked at, it can be used as an indicator of the financial status of the facility. And typically, if the bed occupancy rate is higher, then that's going to mean that the facility is bringing in higher revenue. In other words, more of their beds are filled, they're taking care of more patients. So in theory, they should be making more money. The inpatient bed occupancy rate can be calculated either for the entire facility or for just one specific unit or one specific area of the hospital. The official definition of an inpatient bed occupancy rate is the percentage of official beds occupied by hospital inpatients for a given period of time. Now we're going to break that definition down and see kind of what it tells us and what it means. First of all, we see that it says the percentage. So we know that the answer that we're looking for will be a percentage. We know that from the definition, but also because we're figuring a rate. And remember that rates are displayed as percentages. The next thing that we can tell from our definition is it talks about official beds, and that's not as simple as it sounds. There is a specific definition for official beds. The official beds is the number of inpatient beds that is set up and staffed for use on a given day. So the hospital bed has to be one that is ready to go. It's in an area of the hospital that's not under construction or anything like that, and it's open and there is adequate staff to take care of a patient in that bed or in that room. Okay. What else do we know from the definition? We see that it says occupied by hospital inpatients. So if you can think back when we're calculating inpatient rates, remember that that tells us that when we're doing our formula, we're going to need to multiply by 100 because inpatient rates are calculated at a per 100 rate. Okay, and the last thing it says is for a given period of time. So that just tells us that time is going to be a factor, and time is going to be something that we're going to need to pay attention to when we're calculating this rate. So just to repeat, the percentage of official beds occupied by hospital inpatients for a given period of time. So let's start plugging that into our formula. You may remember that the formula for rates and ratios and proportions is the same. It's x divided by y and then multiplied by a multiple of 10. We can also put this in terms of that it's the number of times that something happened is our x compared to the number of times that it could have happened as the denominator, or y. So in this case, x is going to be equal to the number of patients that are treated daily in the facility, which is also equal to the daily inpatient census that we talked about in the last portion, is also equal to the total number of inpatient service days. So you can actually look at x in several different ways depending on what information you're given. It's the number of patients that's treated daily, which is also equal to the daily inpatient census or the total number of inpatient service days. And that'll make more sense in a few minutes when we start actually plugging some real numbers in. And then y, the number of times something could have happened, is the total possible number of inpatient service days. I think the simplest way to look at it is it's the number of beds that were filled during a specific time divided by or compared to the number of beds that could have been filled at that time. So out of all our beds in the hospital that could have been filled, how many beds were actually taken? Okay, so let's plug some numbers in here and look at an example. This is the same as the example in your book. Let's say that we work at a 280 bed hospital. So 280 is our official bed count for the hospital, or number of official beds. All right, if we're going to figure the inpatient bed occupancy rate for one day, let's say May the 2nd, we have 200 total patients. So we know that that number of patients is going to be our numerator. It's the number of patients that we had in care, or the number of beds that we had filled, 200, compared to the number of beds that we could have had filled, 280, and then multiply by 100 since we're calculating an inpatient rate. So 200 divided by 280 and then multiplied by 100 gives us an inpatient bed occupancy rate of 71.4% for May the 2nd. If we move down and look at this same rate but calculate it for a week or 7 days, then we are given an inpatient, a total number of inpatients as 1,729 for that week. So that week we had 1,729 patients in care. So we know that that's going to be our numerator, our total number of patients in care. Now, we can't just simply plug in 280 as our denominator because, remember, 280 is the total number of beds that could be filled on any given day. So that's a unit that's in days. We need the unit to be in the same unit as the numerator, 1 week. So we're going to have to multiply 280, or the number of beds that could have been filled in one day, times 7, the 7 days that are in the week, and we come up with 1,960. So basically the numerator and the denominator have to be in the same unit as far as the measure of time. You have to compare days to days, weeks to weeks, months to months, however you want to look at that. So we can plug our numbers in. How many patients did we actually have in care? 1,729. We're going to divide that by the number of beds that could have been filled, 1,960, and then multiply by 100 for a solution of 88.2%. Okay, when we were calculating that number